Jakes Roberts, how are you? Where are you tuning in from? I am so excited about us spending some time together this evening. You guys may know me for many, many things. Maybe you've heard the podcast, maybe you've heard one of my sermons, but the thing that I am most passionate about is me taking care of my kiddos. The role of mother is the thing that I have done the longest in my life, and also the thing that I've questioned over and over again. Am I doing it right? How could I do better? And it's one of those questions that I'm always wrestling with. I don't want to just give my kids what I think I should have had or what I think they need. I want to understand from them, how can I serve them? Tonight, we're going to have an amazing conversation where we are going to foster you being able to connect with your children in a more meaningful, powerful way. This campaign is brought to us by Ad Council. It's called Sound It Out, and it's all about helping us have meaningful dialogue and connection with our children in a way that doesn't feel like there's pressure or that there's any room for misunderstanding. It helps us to create a safe space for our kids. I could not have this conversation without my partner in parenting, and so I am glad that my husband, Toure Roberts, is joining me as well. Hey, baby.
Why are you flirting with me?
Hey, baby.
Well, this is supposed to be a very family-oriented conversation. This is baby, and you're blowing kisses, and you're looking amazing. I mean, like, what's up?
I'm just saying, what's up? What it be like? How are you, my partner in parenting? Are you excited about tonight or what?
I am. I'm excited about this conversation, the people that we're going to have this conversation with, and the tools that I believe parents and others are going to receive as a result of this conversation. So yes, I'm excited, baby. I'm excited.
I am excited too. First of all, I just want you to know that people are tuning in literally all over the world. I see Diana tuning in from Upper Marlboro. I see Deanna, a girl. I see Loretta from Charleston, West Virginia. That is where I was born. Before we get started with tonight's conversation, I want to introduce you guys to a PSA that I think is so important for you to really understand and have a part of your toolkit. So before we get started, let's listen to this powerful PSA.
Hey, boss. Okay.
Said I'm fine.
Me the bed, see you in the morning with the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it, and we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. We were underlay in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Bob.
You know you can talk to me.
Yes.
I love that so much. Creating opportunity reminds me of you and Isaiah, to be honest, and how you all have been able to use music as an opportunity to connect and for you guys to really have expression. What do you think about that, babe?
No, I did. I didn't make that connection until you said it. But no, it's a powerful thing. It's something that he wants to do, something that I'm encouraging, and he's basically letting me into his world. And I'm able to parent him through his own passion, as opposed to, me trying to put something on him. So I think it's powerful. Maybe a great lesson for parents to really allow the kids to reveal to you their passion and then get involved and support. It gives you a bridge to them where sometimes kids can be closed off. So that was a great observation, honey.
Yeah, music is so powerful in helping us to understand who is mentoring our children, what messages they are receiving, and what music moves them depending on what's happening in their world. I'm so excited about tonight's conversation because we've got some experts here who are going to help us navigate this line of understanding our children and supporting their mental health. Babe, would you mind introducing our guests for tonight?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we've got Dr. Coralanne Hunte. Dr. Hunte is a psychologist and a minister who specializes in child, adolescent, and adult trauma, mental health, and emotional wellness. Dr. Hunte, welcome, welcome, welcome. And then we've got Dr. Alduan Tartt, my brother. He's a psychologist, he's a minister, he's a speaker. He's a media host, he's an author, and he's made a significant impact in counseling youth, couples, and families. Dr. Tartt, good to see you, my brother.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
There's truly nothing that makes me more excited than knowing that we are going to hear from experts, because I just know when this is all said and done that we are just going to be incredibly more resourced when it comes to serving our children. I'd like to start with Dr. Hunte. We're often talking about mental health, but I am wondering, can you help us better understand this term and what does it encompass, and what is the connection between mental health and physical health?
Thank you, Pastor Sarah, and thank you for allowing me into this space and for creating this space for what I like to call courageous conversation. It's courageous because we don't talk about it. There's stigma about it, but it's time for us to unfold and get down to it in our community. So when we're talking about mental health, we have to understand that it's multidimensional. It's not just one aspect of who we are. It speaks to our selfhood. So we're talking about the process by which an individual is, how their emotional well-being is, how their psychological, their physical, their spiritual, and their social well-being. Basically, how are we showing up in the world? Because you see, mental health affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. It also determines how we handle stress, if we handle stress in a productive way or non-productive way, and how we relate to others, and are we making healthy choices? You know, there's a reason why when you go to your clinician, and some of us think it's intrusive, and the doctor might say to you, so tell me, how are you feeling today? They might give you a form to fill out and says, you know, rate your emotions from like 1 to 10 and how you're feeling. What sicknesses you know are in your family? And you think it's intrusive, like, mind your business, why are you asking me all these questions, right? Get down to the nitty-gritty why I'm here. But you see, the reason why all of these questions are being asked is because we know that there's a connection between your mental health and your physical health. You see, if you have a good mental health, then you're physically well. But on the other side, you can't be physically well and not mentally well. Because you see, if you're not mentally well, we can tell whether or not sicknesses and diseases may be a part of what's going on with you. The two are connected. And so that's why it's so important that we understand what mental health truly is.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. That connection between just mind and body is one that I think we undervalue a lot. Babe, I know you had a question, especially about where we are with Mackenzie right now as a middle schooler. Do you want to chime in with that?
She's going to appreciate us use no, but for the parents that are tuning in with middle schoolers, what are some of the challenges that they're facing, and just things that show up and are manifest in their everyday lives, and what are some of the most prevalent issues? We're trying to understand her. We're really intentional about giving her independence and making her feel free. And it is a little scary because, we certainly don't want to put her on a rope. But we also want to make certain that as parents, we are not derelict in our duty by putting kind of guideposts out there. But what sort of things should we be looking out for, and where should we draw the line as it relates to parenting a middle schooler?
Let me first of all say that you all are in a difficult situation. All right. And thanks. No, and we're looking at the highest stress group. It's middle school girls.
Wow.
Middle school girls at the highest stress level. All right. And so if we add on to that a PK, a double PK, all right, and y'all have public personalities, all right, and you're public, right? So we add all of those things on, you absolutely should be concerned. And let's talk about all middle schoolers. Let me tell you what they're worried about. It's gonna surprise you. One, they're worried about their grades. I know you're like, no, they're not worried about their grades. We can't get them to do anything. But they are. This generation actually has more pressure on them to produce. I can't tell you how many middle schoolers, especially girls, are talking about if their grades are going to get them into college, if they're going to be able to have the lifestyle of their parents, if they're going to be able to keep up with their peers, because everyone seems like they're doing amazing things. Number two, they're worried about their peers, especially girls. Late elementary school, around 4th and 5th grade, girls start to have difficult time with other girls not liking them, and they begin to click. That is a major stressor for teen girls. It's a stressor for boys as well, but teenage girl friendships, y'all already know, are difficult. And then they're also stressed about their parents. Kids are carrying the inadequate coping skills for what's going on with their parents. We're talking about divorce. We're talking about stress. We're talking about travel. We're talking about grief. We're talking about, for our kids that are in the foster care system, juvenile court. We're talking about households where there's this thing called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. So someone's getting locked up, some domestic violence, a parent in the house with mental illness. The stuff is happening in real life. Our middle schoolers are having to deal with. And in addition to that, the biggest things that we're seeing, Pastor PT, he told me not to call him Pastor PT, and Pastor Sarah, is loneliness. Our kids are lonely because they're on their phones and they don't know how to properly connect in real life. Those are some of the things that we're seeing. COVID didn't make it any better. And so we're actually having to teach our children soft skills, how to actually work a room, how to actually make friends at a new middle school, at a high school, which friends to have and which friends not to have. So all those combination of things are why middle schoolers are at the very top of having so much stress.
This is so good. And there are so many parents who are chiming in saying, very true, I'm facing this at home. So I think you're spot on. What I hear you saying is that our kids' home environment, their friendships, the experiences at school, all of these things are playing a role in their mental health. So I'm wondering, how do these factors all interact, and what are we to do as parents to really support them through these challenges and these aspects of life that are unavoidable? I don't know if I'm putting too much pressure on myself, but as a parent, I feel like I have this one shot at laying a foundation at how they show up in the world, how they perceive other people, how they interpret other people's actions into their identity. And I'm trying to not make her have 30 plus years of wisdom, even though she's just a 13-year-old girl, but I want to support her in a way that really adds value and not more stress.
What first thing that comes to mind for girls, they have to have a tribe. All right. So we need teen girls to have 3 to 4 close girlfriends, and platonic guy friends, right? That's who's going to shape who they really are. Right. And when we have girls, especially who are isolated, who feel like they don't fit, they can't find their tribe, they're searching, they're reaching. We can feel it as parents. We can see you're reaching. You don't really have a tribe. We actually have to help them. We have to actually sit down the same way we would with math and science and say, hey, Tell me about your friends with other girls. If we can get our girls to open up, they'll tell you how difficult it is. And when we hear as parents, we're like, yeah, that is a level 9 difficulty because this girl likes this girl, and I can't put the two of them together because they don't like each other. And then when I'm with this girl, we're besties, but if she's with two other ones, I'm the third friend, and I don't like that, right? And so they're having difficult times trying to negotiate. So what we have to do is actually teach our kids how to make friends and actually structure. I know this sounds juvenile for middle schoolers and high schoolers. We actually have to structure them being outside and having quote unquote play dates. We have to show them how to be in community. Since I'm talking to families of faith, we have to teach them how to actually be not only friends, but good friends to one another. Parents are chiming in right now. They're like, look, half the stress with my teen daughter and son is all the conflict they're having with friends. They're stressed out. And then also, really quickly, if you have a child who's an empath, who feels other people, and they're the helper for their friends, I can just tell you flat out, they're carrying way too much stress. Their friends are talking to them about suicide, sexuality, dating, stuff their parents are going through. Their boyfriends are opening up about all of their traumas because they feel safe. And teen girls are carrying too much, and they need us to be able to help unpack that and have a place to talk about it without us judging as parents.
I love what you're talking about, because you're essentially saying be a proactive parent. And this is something that Sarah and I were talking about literally just last night, how, oftentimes, full transparency, we get so busy, and it's not that we don't have a parenting consciousness, but oftentimes we feel like we're reacting. And now it's, the child is experiencing, the teen is experiencing their life. And then instead of us maybe helping to shape that experience to the best of our ability, we're reacting to some of the, more negative outcomes. And I'm challenged, and it started last night, and I'm very much challenged. You're basically talking about, you got to be hands-on in this thing. You got to carve out time. You've got to be fully engaged, like it's your job. Is that kind of what you both are saying?
Absolutely. I think one of the powerful things that a parent can give is the gift of presence. The gift, if we see it as a gift that I'm transferring to my child, this is your time. I want to know about you, not having any expectations. You're not trying to create mini yous, right? And that's a misconception. We feel as though our children, since they're a reflection of us, that we want them to be us. But they're their own individual. God gave them that as a birthright gift for them to show up in this space and be who they are. But we have to spend time getting to know who they are evolving to be. You're here to guide them, to show them the tools as to how they are to respond to life. And they are experiencing stress. I mean, think about it. They're also coming from COVID, not being with their friends the way they wanted to be, not being in school, socializing, and being scared, and hearing adults talk about it in a way that wasn't always healthy, that was at times scary. And our society was experiencing collective trauma. And so trauma isn't just what happens to you, it's what's happening inside of you. And so it's so important that we give them the gift of presence and start talking to them. We should not be trying to communicate with our children only because a situation has occurred. Normalize having fruitful conversation, hearing their aspect. Ask them a question. Hey, you know what are your thoughts around XYZ?
Yeah.
And listen. I like to say the difference between hearing and listening is hearing says, okay, there's music playing. Listening actually allows you to know the words. You can hear the words that's being sung. And so we need to start listening more and valuing what they say. You know, I'm Caribbean, right? So we were raised to just, okay, children are to sit and be quiet. But tools weren't always transferred. How do I express myself when a situation happens? So it's so important that we show up, that they know that we value what it is that they have to say, that they're not too small or little to have an opinion on life, and to offer that respect in a way that is, you know, empathetic and compassionate and understanding and non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We also have to have a relationship over authority. I know I'm talking to parents like, you gonna listen to me, but kids don't listen to you if they don't feel close to you. I don't care what your title is. Right? My kids don't care anything about my title. They don't care I'm supposed to
Mhm.
be a parenting expert. I done made more mistakes. I can write a book about it. So one, we have to value relationship over authority. Today's generation is not going because I said so. Now there are some things we have to draw the hard line on, but what they really want is relationships. So I say we have to make appointments with our kids. All right. You all have six. I have three at different ages, a 17, 7 as of today, and then a 1 and an 18-month-old. Pray for me, y'all. I know.
God
COVID.
bless.
Life got me good. It's all good. All right. All right. So I'm having to make separate appointments with all three because there's no way I can talk to my 7-year-old daughter with the baby. In the conversations I have with a 17-year-old are inappropriate for a 7-year-old, and the baby's just going to dominate. So just really quickly, if we're talking about our girls as dad's jobs with girls is to give them a healthy sense of independence, which is hard for us because we see them making their own choices, and especially the way we were raised, you're going in a different direction. I've told my oldest daughter, I wasn't raised like this. I can't raise you. You wearing that? Everything baggy? Come on. All right. So, but I had to give her, if I don't give her a healthy sense of independence, I come off as controlling and I don't teach her to be her. And then for boys, we have to teach our boys competence. When boys feel incompetent, I mean they're not good at school, they don't feel like they're good at making friends, they can't dance, they can't play ball, they can't express art. If they don't feel great at something, like they have a high competence, you're looking for a mental health issue. You're looking for stress because these boys don't know where to go, and they also need a sense of warmth from their mothers. So we're talking about cross parenting, and there are a lot of parents who are like single moms, and they're struggling between having to give the disciplinarian and be warm. But if we had to opt for one, our boys need warmth. That's what helps them to feel loved and cared about from their moms and dads.
Ooh, you have said a lot right here. I know if Mackenzie was listening, she's going to be like, remember when Dr. Tartt said about letting me pick out my own clothing? I'm going to edit this part out of the video. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, my daughter's chiming in right now, like, oh my, next I just got.
You know, I love what you said about relationship over authority. I know for many of us culturally, that makes like the hair stand up on the back of our necks because we have been taught that a sign of good parenting is control. Get somewhere and sit down. I would never let my child act like that. And we have been applauded for our ability to control our children. And yet I think cultivating a relationship has been something that has been significantly difficult, not just between the child, but sometimes I think even in ourselves, with a sense of healthy intimacy, to understand our own mental health. And for God forbid, we have to teach that to our children as well. I am wondering, Dr. Tartt, when you were speaking about relationship over authority, it made me understand, even I love the analogy, Dr. Hunte, you gave about hearing music versus hearing the words. I'm curious, when we're trying to create this relationship with our children, when we're listening so that we can learn how they express themselves and what's important to them, where is the line between this is normal adolescent stress to this is something that feels a little bit deeper, we should be concerned? What are those signs we should look for as we're trying to create relationship and give them room for expression?
one of the things you have to trust your intuition, and in the faith community we call it conation, right? Your gut saying this doesn't sound right. It's something they're not saying. You can actually see your teens or your preteens starting to feel how you feel you out about information. They may mention a classmate is struggling with their sexuality, or they may say so and so is dating, or I don't really care about school. It's not that important, right? You'll just feel it a lot of times. But one of the things we're looking for is changes in how your kids move. All right. Are they sleeping more? Are they isolated in their room? Are they irritable and agitated? Are they by themselves when you pick them up from school on the weekends, especially if we're talking about late middle school and high school? They're not hanging with any other peers. They actually want to be home. But the biggest thing that we miss as parents and even as doctors, sleep disorders. The Surgeon General just came straight out and told us that we're diagnosing too much anxiety and depression when the real issue is sleep. Our teens are not getting enough sleep, and it causes more depression and anxiety and irritability. And what we know is that teenagers are on their phones when we go to sleep, 11, 12, 1 o'clock. They're TikToking, Snapchatting, because you can't regulate it. And so with them not getting enough sleep, either too much or too little, it's going to regulate their mood. And the number one risk factor for suicidal ideation is long periods of sleep deprivation.
Wow.
Why is that? Think about how they get, I'm not going to go too long on this, but how they get spies to tell in the military. They sleep deprive them. All right. That's how they actually get them to open up. Right. And so if we're allowing our kids to be sleep deprived, not allowing, but our kids are sleep deprived, then of course it's going to affect their mood and their behaviors and how well they do in school.
Absolutely. And if I can just share, for parents, you also want to look for patterns.
That's a good one.
You want to take note of patterns, things that are consistent, which means you have to be looking, you have to be vested in their behavior. Understand that behavior is a language. I hear parents say all the time, oh, he or she is not, they're not talking to me. Yes, they are. They're speaking. It may be nonverbal. So you want to look for patterns, and you want to know that, you want to acknowledge that behavior is a language and that it's secondary. So you may see behaviors, don't just react to a particular behavior. There's a primary reason why your child responded that way. And you need to take note of it. So you have to be present.
This is really good. Y'all taking me straight to church. No, this is so enlightening, and I know that so many people are being helped. I'm being helped. So mental health, how do you educate your middle schooler on mental health, and really to get them to embrace understanding what it is and best practices for self-care?
I will say the first thing to parents, guess what? You are your children's emotional coach.
That's good.
That's important for you to understand. How you respond to situations, you're modeling behavior. You're modeling how you are to, respond. We may think that our children aren't watching, but they're watching. We may think that they aren't listening, but they're listening. So even the verbiage that you use when situations occur, you're teaching them what verbiage to use when situations occur for them. Behavior, you're teaching them. Parents know that you're modeling behavior. So it's very important that you are self-aware. We tend to talk so much about what the children require, but moms, dads, caregivers, guess what? What do you require? How do you self-regulate? Because if all you do is respond and not reflect, there's an issue. We need parents to be able to reflect, because our children will learn that. You're transferring tools. You're transferring resources. So the first thing I would say, how do we get them engaged in mental health and wanting to know about it and self-care? By you modeling the behavior. The second thing I would say is have conversation, converse with the children, talk to them about self-care, talk to them about their emotions. We cannot heal and or treat what we have not identified. So what you want to do is help your children to be able to identify their emotions and their feelings, not just in the stance of, oh, well, I'm feeling sad. Well, when you feel sad, what part of your body do you experience any change?
Mm.
When you feel anxiety, what are you experiencing in your body? Now they may say, when I get, when I feel anxious, my heart starts to race. Because you want to teach them that there's a connection between their feelings and their bodies. And if you can feel it, you know when it's coming on, then you can learn to master and control it. So these are things that's so very important for us to share with our children, and as I said earlier, don't only speak to them when a situation arises, because we need them to be able to master that resiliency when situations arise. This is the method. You experience a situation, then you get thoughts about the situation. When you get those thoughts about the situations, you start to get feelings about the situation. And then is when your behavior kicks in. So if we can get our children to realize, okay, wait a minute, I'm starting to feel angry. Why? Because I'm starting to feel hot inside. I just want to spaz. Well, if you can identify the feeling in that situation, then I want you to breathe.
Mm.
I want you to know that you control you. You can't control what was done by someone else, but you have the right to control you. And our children are not too young to know that they have the power, the willpower to control themselves. Now, as it relates also to self care, take them jogging with you, take them for a walk, go and get your hair done together, do things together. It creates that connectedness, but it's also a form of self-care. Say, hey, you like bubble baths? Or you like, what's your favorite ice cream? Let's go get you some ice cream. I'm not saying to do this often, right? But go get the favorite ice cream. Do things that are positive so that they acknowledge, hmm, this is something that's not just for my mom or my dad or my caregiver. This is important for me, because you will not always be around your children, but the
Mm.
tools that you transfer will be,
Mm.
if they're transferred correctly. So we need parents to transfer those tools. But first, regulate you, regulate your emotions. Oh, and last thing, when you go to speak to your children, don't go if you know that you're really heated and you angry. I have four. Okay. So to learn, I've had to learn that I'm dealing with four different personalities. I had to learn that I cannot have expectations for them. They're going to show up and be who they are, and I have to respect that, and I can't compare them. Don't compare the children in your household. Let them show up as who they are and work with them, because every syndrome has symptoms. And so how Carrington might behave might not be how Chandler behaves, but it doesn't mean that they don't deserve the same level of respect and attention when you're dealing with them. So transfer the tools, but check in on yourself and make sure that you're grounded. It's very important.
And we start thinking about how to do that. There's a tool with soundidouttogether.org. If you go to soundidouttogether.org, because I know parents are thinking, you don't know my child. I ask them how they're doing. They tell me I'm fine, or I'm good, or what you want? I said I was fine. I don't want to take bubble baths. I don't want to go on a walk with you, right? If we have these conversation starter packs, they give you these different cards, because the key is we have to start soft and then graduate. So I did this with my own kids, right? And we had the best conversation we've had in a long time. So like some of the questions are like, You know, which if you could live 100 years in the future or in the past, if you could be a famous singer or an actor, would you be in an action movie or a comedy movie? What we're doing, even though these sound superficial, is that we're starting with conversation. You all know this is a church. Churches that have really good, great youth ministries, they start with building friendship with the middle schoolers and the high schoolers. They don't start heavy with teaching the word. They don't start heavy with asking them what they believe. They group them together, allow them to connect as friends, and then they bring in the word. So these conversation starter packs start like that, and then it goes into talking about emotions and labeling emotions. Now, I know you say you're angry, but are you embarrassed? Do you feel like not good enough? Are you afraid? Are you shy? You know, and then what are some things that you're grateful for? What are your biggest stressors? So if you're just playing this game, it disarms. It disarms your kids and allows you all to have a family conversation that then gets deep. And then because you're doing this on a regular basis, and it's all about relationship. See, if we just have a one-time conversation with our kids, they'll feel like they're in trouble. Like, okay, my dad never sits down with me and comes in my room unless I'm in trouble or something bad's getting ready to happen. But if we can make this 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, where we're just checking in with them and seeing how they're doing and building relationship about how they feel about current events, our kids are going to grow. And then last thing, if we're talking about mental health, we have to teach our kids how to deal with adversity, right? Not only are we teaching them to be mentally well and happy, we actually have to teach our kids how to deal with grit. I mean, how to have grit and adversity when someone doesn't like them. You have a kid that's in music. My oldest daughter is student council president in a majority white school, right? And I have to teach her how not to care, that she can't please everyone. You can't be in the middle of you have to say how you feel and let the chips fall where they may. Now, you say that, but then how do you teach that? Like, so we actually have to teach them resiliency, finding their voice, dealing with stress. We actually have to push them. Because she wants to go into politics. I don't know. I pray for me because her dad could never give a comment. All right. But I have to teach her how to find her own voice, work with other people, right, and take risks. She did a walkout last year, right? I was out there with her, but laid back. 'Cause I ain't want sister girl to get suspended, nor hitting the face, right? But I fell all the way back and talked to her about when do you take lead and when do you fall back. So it's so many lessons. This is what Dr. Hunt says that we have to teach our kids. That if we're not in tune with what's going on with them, we don't know how much to teach and how much to fall back. My daughter plays volleyball. She told me don't come to the games. All right, because I'll put too much pressure on her. So I had to learn how it hurt my heart. I had to fall back and give her that independence. Right. And then she started playing better every time I don't come.
Well, that's okay because you're giving her so many tools. She'll thank you later, even though you were absent, you were still there because the tools. See, I'm learning already, Dr. Hunt. The tools stay with her. What strikes me about this conversation, Pat, and I'm glad we have one too. I can't wait to use it. One of the things I learned with Mackenzie this school year is that we were able to have our best conversations in the car as a part of going back and forth to whatever activity we were in. Instead of turning on music or her putting in her headphones, I would take the time to really ask her questions about her day and what are her friends up to. But what strikes me about these cards is that it's also an opportunity. If you're watching this and you're a parent and you're thinking to yourself, I don't even know how to model emotional wellness or being in tune with my emotions because I didn't have those tools myself. As much as I do want you to use these cards to help you tap into what's happening with your child, I also want to challenge you to learn more about these cards so that you can learn how to tap into what you're experiencing. What a beautiful time of self-reflection, journaling, and meditating would you have if you took a moment, if you asked yourselves these questions and almost reparented yourself so that you can show up better for your children? I think that would offer you a unique opportunity. So make sure you go to soundidouttogether.org. The sun's going down over here, so I know I may be a little spotty, but go to soundidouttogether.org so that you can learn more about these cards. Now, listen, I know we're almost wrapping up, but we have some parents who want to ask some questions to these experts. So can we please get one of our parents in the hot seat who's willing to let us mind your business for the sake of us all learning and growing?
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for allowing me to join you this evening, Pastor Roberts and Pastor Roberts, Dr. Hunt and Dr. Tartt. Again, good evening. My name is LaShonda Lee. I'm from Dinwiddie County. And my question for you is, how can we as parents, number one, support our teens specifically and our children? And also, how can we ensure that they're feeling heard? Oftentimes I hear parents, other parents that I know and are friends with, their children, specifically the teens, complain that they're just not being heard, they're just not being understood. And so if you could offer us just some advice or resources or tools for how we can better or more appropriately help our children to feel understood and heard. And then a follow-up to that is, and I think you guys have kind of already touched on this a little bit. How do we know when is the appropriate questions to ask? Sometimes we may find that we're asking too many questions or not enough questions. So what's appropriate? What are the appropriate questions? And then also, what's the appropriate level of support that we need to give? Do we fall back, like you just said, Dr. Tartt, or do we come harder and start asking more questions? So hopefully you guys can shed some light on that.
Yeah, and I'm going to stand up for the kids. We don't listen well. We don't listen, especially if you have a title, your own kids talking to you. So one, we have to listen first. Isn't that what Christ does? He listens. We feel heard. We can pray. Christ never interrupts us. So if we're modeling this, and I know we're talking about Black people, we're talking about of color, this goes against our culture to a certain degree. But one, we have to listen first. And what that looks like is asking our kids, what do you need from me? Right? We actually have, if you're open, say, hey, what grade would you give your dad, A through F, and how well I'm parenting you? Only our kids can give us an accurate rating of how well we are parenting them. And then second, when we ask them open-ended questions, ask open-ended questions. Like, how is football going for you? How is middle school going for you? How's your music coming? We ask them open-ended questions. And then when they're talking, say nothing. Unless you're asking for clarity. I want you to evoke your inner Oprah. I want you to make your kids feel like the most interesting kid in the entire world during that moment. You're not multitasking, you're not on your phone. So when you say you're not really feeling football anymore, like, what do you mean? When did that start? Quick question. I saw you out there laughing and playing last week. It seemed like you were enjoying it. Was I reading it wrong, or do you enjoy it sometimes? Hey, when you say you have no friends, I looked at your TikTok account. You have 40,000 followers. Can you clarify as to how you have 40,000 followers but don't feel connected? And then after they're finished talking, so one, listen. Two, ask for clarity. That's really what's going to draw them in, right? And then three, validate their emotions. That means that we don't have to agree as parents. Just validate. I can totally see how you could be worried about college in 7th grade because your friends are talking about it. I can totally see how you feel unheard when we make you stay at church all day and you want to do other things and you feel like you already heard the first service and you want to go connect with your friends. Right? I can totally see how you're having conflict over faith and fun. I totally get it, and I need you to know that I understand what it must be like to be the son of a daughter of a pastor, of a teacher, of a minister, of a police officer, or whatever it may be. And we can have a conversation about how much freedom and how much obligation you do have to the church.
Just basically what you're saying, Doctor, and I we bounce back and forth on each other, and it's so wonderful. You don't have to agree to understand.
Yeah.
That is such a, a key tool for us to have in our parent box. Know that when we are showing up for them and when they are conversing with us, okay, ask questions like, so what song? What's your favorite song right now? And they may say, a secular artist. It's not for you to come down talking about, well, that's not about God. No, well, why? The real question is, why is that your favorite song?
Come on.
Right? Why is that your favorite song? Talk to me about that. Can I listen to the song? Let me play the song and see why you like it. And start to just have free conversation with them. Be present. I can't stress that enough. The gift of presence. And also on the sounditouttogether.org website, there's something that I love that I started aside from the conversation starter kit, which I actually give to parents to take home and utilize. They have something on there that speaks about the roses and thorns conversation model. And so the rose will be a question along the lines of, so what happened great for you today? And then the thorn could be, what wasn't so great about today? It doesn't have to be these big, philosophical questions. Just how was your day, and what was so exciting about today? What made you happy today? What maybe confused you in a certain class? Because if we start just having these regular conversations, normalizing that relational connection, then when the other topics come into play, they'll know that you have already created a safe and protective space for them to show up, and they will.
And I'll add one thing really quickly. If you dare to do it, parents, your kids will tell you what you need to work on.
Mm.
I asked the kids what I need to work on. They all agreed. Patience. My wife was like, for sure. Right? I was like, oh, and I knew that. So I was like, what do you mean? Like, they were like, yeah, we're at church for 2, 3, 8, 11, 6. But let us be 3 minutes late coming out of volleyball practice. Let me be 3 minutes more at jump zone. You go ballistic. Time is money. Time. But when it's, and I was like, that's right. And also they tell me I do too much. I was like, what do you mean? So if you don't ask those questions, I have to ask those questions so that I know what adjustments to make. That is actually a gift that we're giving our kids, that you matter in this dynamic. Right. And I want to adjust to be the best father, the best mother for you. And I'm giving you permission to give me feedback without getting in trouble. So I know how to be better for you. And, every kid's going to tell you something different.
That's great. I can imagine that they'll also tell you what doesn't matter. Because I think as moms, sometimes we spend so much time worried about things that, like, we have to make sure we have the perfect snack together and that all of the laundry's finished. And the things that matter the most to them are probably not like the floors are sticky when I walk into the kitchen. The things that they're really going to remember are probably going to boil down a lot to the things that you all covered today.
Yeah, this is really good. I think we got one more parent to bring in. Do we have a Stephen, a parent with a question?
Yes. Thank you guys for taking some time to shed some light on all of our situations. I'm a parent of a 3-year-old. My wife and I are going through the throes of toddlerhood, and I have a lot of young cousins. So all the information that you're sharing is very, very pertinent and valuable. The question that I have, just sort of drawing on the thread that Dr. Tartt had started saying, like, girls, need to have a tribe. And also even what Dr. Hunte was saying, just being able to say that the parent is an emotional coach. There's a lot of different issues that are going on in society today, dealing with everything from identity, sexuality, just mindsets. And the question that I have for you, Pastor Roberts, as well as for the panelists, is what suggestions do you have to be able to create boundaries, healthy boundaries, to protect your child's mental health, specifically in a way that will honor or respect their faith foundation, or in my case, a Christian upbringing?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think one of the things that creates boundaries are these conversations. I really think that if we really get in there and we engage them and we, quite frankly, beat society to the punch. Society wants to have conversations with our children every single day and through every means possible. And so I think that one of the things that will create boundaries, obviously, you know, we can't keep them away from the world. We can't keep them from a culture that may or may not be in alignment with the values that we have as it relates to our foundation of faith. But what we can do is make certain that we're the first person to talk to them. We're bringing up things, of course, with wisdom, but we're having these hard conversations. And as we are observant about what's happening in the world, what's happening in culture, to really strike first. Knowing your child, I mean, obviously, again, there are levels and there's timing, but knowing your child enough to begin to broach some of these conversations early, and have that conversation to prepare them so that when they're out there and they're hearing, you know, things that, you know, other people's opinions or opinions that differ from the values that you're raising them with, they already have a perspective. They have an idea. We don't want to isolate them or to keep them from something that they're going to ultimately be exposed to, but we want to prepare them. We want to equip them. And I think that having conversations with them, cultivating, as both doctors talked about, cultivating this healthy relation, normalizing friendship and relationship, so that you become a guide, so to speak, or at least a trusted guide as they navigate through things that, quite frankly, will be somewhat outside of our control.
You know, and I'll dive in there because I know what he was talking about, and I'm gonna try and gently go there in a minute with our kids' sexuality, right? And this is a fine line for the church, right? Because the brand of the church is at stake here. Like, we have to be able to be accepting, and then we also have to have standards. So when we start talking about sexuality, here's how to have the conversation. One, how sure are you? Right? Like, there's levels 0 to 100, because here's the issue. We have kids who are genuinely struggling with their development, and identity is just part of it. But once they make one decision, they're labeled that way and they have to walk with it. All right. And then on the other hand, there are kids who are sure. They are sure. They feel as unhappy trying to be forced to be something that they're not. So you have to have the conversation to listen to them first. If we try to come in and tell them what they are and what they're not going to do, if we're too open and say, hey, you can choose whomever you want to be, we're going to err with kids who are just confused, liking the first gender who likes them. I'm just going to keep it real. But as they mature and get older, they realize, no, I just like the person that liked me, and I didn't know what love and romance felt like. On the other hand, there are going to be kids that are sure, like, this is just how I am. I wish I were not this way. I wish I could be accepted in the church. I wish someone could just have a conversation with me without judgment to help me figure this out and negotiate it. So we have to have a real conversation with our kids, but listen first and help them be able to have the conversation. Because if we have a relationship, we can help them negotiate their feelings, their emotions a lot better than trying to put our morals on them. And then we have to strike first, because if we don't strike first and have conversations with our kids about their sexuality, their character development, who they are in God, what they believe, if we don't develop that first, then we're going to be reactive to the culture, which is not afraid to tell them who they are as a male, who they are as a girl, and what kind of attitude as a woman, and what kind of attitudes you should have about X, Y, and Z. So we have to strike first and just simply ask our kids, how do you feel about X, Y, and Z? And just restrain ourselves enough to listen. But that's what Christ does. He listens to us. And as a church, and especially as faith believers, we're the most guilty of being judgmental around this issue, right? And I get it. We have to walk the fine line between saying, hey, this is the standard, but I also want to hear you. And when we do that in an artful way, in a loving way, then our kids feel heard, and then we're going to actually help them navigate what's truly going on with them in today's society.
Yeah, that's so good. PT and I have tried to be really intentional about making sure that we challenge our children to bring all of themselves into relationship with God and not to just make it this myopic perspective, but God, who am I as a person in general, and allowing them to really understand what it means to be in relationship with God and to allow all of themselves to be challenged, transformed, affirmed, whatever, in who they are as it relates to their relationship with God. We actually have one more parent with a question, and her name is Toya, and I cannot wait to hear how she's going to continue to take this conversation deeper and deeper. Toya, like no pressure here, but we're like in it, like we're in the nitty gritty, babe. So like bring it.
Yes, well, I really appreciate you guys having me on this show. Good evening. I'm Toya Montgomery. I'm the host of The Plug with Toya T out of Cincinnati, Ohio. I am a mother of an amazing 8-year-old, a divorced mother. And my question is all around offering up therapy in a way that is not making her feel like something is wrong with her or that there is anything broken because she's coming from a divorced family. I'm just curious if you guys have any tools or resources you can offer to divorced families that want to make sure that their children are whole.
So one, you want to start with a technique called displacement. Displacement is where you're talking about something happening to someone else, right? So there's a book out called Why Dinosaurs Divorce, just comes to my mind, right? I didn't write it, so I'm not plugging it. All right. So why dinosaurs divorce? So if someone is 8 years old, even though that's a little, juvenile for them, they're going to get it. And you ask them, what do you are a neighbor? Or you see a TV show. Hey, what do you think about the family divorcing? How would that make you feel? Right? That's one way to go about it. The second thing we have to talk about with our kids, you're gonna be surprised how many kids blame themselves. They felt like it's my job, because kids are egocentric. It's my job to be able to keep my mom and dad together, or my mom and my bonus dad together, whatever the scenario is, especially if they've had acting out behavior. They felt like, you know what? I stress mom and dad out and they're arguing over me. And the reason that they're arguing is because I'm failing my classes, or I'm acting out, or I'm smoking, or whatever the case may be. And then we have to sit and talk as parents first and present the plan for what's next and say, hey, you know what? These are our thoughts and our feelings about how we're going to go our separate ways. And you have to decide how much to tell them based upon their age and how much they've seen. Kids who actually have not seen their parents argue actually have the toughest time with divorce because it comes out of nowhere. Whereas with other kids, they're actually relieved. All right. And as long as you're actually able to, I don't mean that's the case all the time, but they're like, look, if it's going to keep y'all from fighting and y'all can be civil, divorce does not hurt kids. It's conflict that hurts kids. All right. And if you can be peaceful and be in separate households, then and have peace, kids are going to do better. I know that's controversial, but if we're looking at real research, it's the conflict. So you can do more harm than good having kids in a conflictual relationship. There are kids that don't want to get married. They're like, if that's what it looks like, I'm good. Right. And so we have to make sure that we also maintain family and give them structure. So here's what family's going to look like. Dad's going to come get you on Wednesdays, but you're going to be with mom on this. They need to get that structure, and let's get your feedback about how you feel. Parents are shocked when teenagers are like, you know what? I'm kind of good. My friends are over here. I know y'all want to do this little agreement. I'm good over here 3 days. I want volleyball over here and stay with my friends over here. Right. And give them voice to be able to articulate how they feel and make the adjustments, especially with older kids, because they'll tell you the agreement that works for them. And that way you can have less rebellion because they feel like they're part of it. And also build family time to where they may lose you all as husband and wife, but they don't lose family time. They'll say, hey, can you still come to my games? But just don't sit next to each other. All right. Or I had a kid really quickly that talked to his parents at halftime, like, why y'all sitting on opposite ends of the gym? You know how crazy that looks? Why having to go talk to one of y'all? Just sit next to each other. Don't fuss and watch me play basketball. All right. So we have to make sure that kids still have family time because the family didn't break, even though the marriage did.
That's great, Dr. Tartt. I just love hearing you talk because, because it's so true. I think that so many times parents just see what they are experiencing and what they are going through, that they don't stop to realize that, yeah, you two may have gotten married, but now there's a kid involved. So this is a family unit. And so how the children feel about, what they deem as this major, for some, just this combobulation, this brokenness of the family. It's important to let them know that though mom and dad are not together, your parents are still here. Your parents will still show up. Your parents are still active in your life, and we love each other enough to value how you feel, to value your thoughts, to value what it is that you prefer to happen, because that still is their life and it's still going to impact. And Dr. Tartt, spoke about the ACEs, the adverse childhood, experiences and adverse community environments. That's still community. And so what is the culture now? What will the culture of our family look like? What is the climate of our family? It's very important to think about that and to address those issues as well when we're talking about the family unit and divorce and how the structure will be moving forward. So, though it may be difficult at first, because nothing is easy, right? Though it may be difficult, it can be, something that children can look back at and know that no matter what occurred throughout the divorce, they were still loved and they were still valued, and they felt that sense of family, because that's important.
That's good, Dr. Hunt.
It is. It reminds me, we didn't get a chance to tell everyone when we first started this that we labeled this Family Evolved. If you guys are familiar with the movement Woman Evolved, then we're always talking about how the modern woman of faith is changing what it means to show up in the world. But when we hear the word family evolved, it's not just about a woman evolving in her community, but how do we as a family come into the best version of ourselves? How do we lead with compassion? How do we listen with intention? How do we make space for our children to claim their independence at an early age so that they are not swayed by peer pressure or impressionable by what's happening in the media? This conversation, I believe, has been one of the toolkits that God's making available to you as you seek to raise children who are leaders and world changers in their own right. I want to show you again these cards, the Conversation Starter Pack. You need to get this. You need to go to sounditouttogether.org so that you can begin having healthy conversations with your children, perhaps even with yourself, as you seek to really understand who they are and how you can best serve them as a parent. I would be nothing without my co-parent, Toure Roberts. Baby, what are your thoughts about this time we've spent together?
Well, first of all, it's been incredible. And I just want to say to every parent, in this hour that we've spent together, we've talked about a lot. And quite frankly, it can feel a bit overwhelming. There is a lot to learn. There are a lot of things to employ. Some of the things that Dr. Hunt and Dr. Tartt described will be a complete shift from how you're currently parenting. It doesn't have to all happen overnight. And I want to encourage you. I believe the reason why you're watching this, the reason why you're dialed into this, is because God is ensuring that you've got what it takes to raise these precious children that you've been entrusted with. So take your time, take it in. This resource is going to be available on several platforms. You'll be able to find out how to tap into it. I don't want you to be overwhelmed. We're evolving. Evolving doesn't happen overnight. I believe you've got what it takes, and God will see to it that you get tools like this. And as you employ these tools, you're going to raise fantastic human beings. And then I just wanted you to be encouraged with that. And so thankful to Dr. Tartt and Dr. Hunt. What you have shared is priceless. I'm encouraged. I'm a better parent. All of us are watching right now. We're better parents because of what you've shared. And I'm so grateful to you, to the Ad Council, to all the groups that came together to make this happen. So I'm just grateful, honey. And thank you for being an incredible incredible mom, incredible parent.
Oh, shucks now. All right now. We'll make another one. Let's JK. We already in the fire with the ones we got. Thank you all so much for your time tonight. Thank you for spending your evening with us in the Sound It Out campaign. We cannot wait to hear how your family continues to evolve because you are taking this charge seriously. We hope to connect again soon. But until then, have a great evening. Bye.
Hey, boss. Okay.
Said I'm fine.
Put me to bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it. In my head, in my head, in my head. We were underlay in my head.
Hey, son.
Hey, Bob.
You know you can talk to me.